Hello there, welcome to the land of Kakiak. My name is Laurel and I am moving on to level 3 in my McGuffey's language arts program. Okay, if you missed the first 3 videos, the intro, level 1 and level 2, I will link them for you in the description box, along with I'll probably try to link anything that I show you today. I don't want to make you run all over the internet looking for something. So we are on Language Arts Level 3 using the McGuffey Readers Revised Editions as the core of our Language Arts program for our homeschools. Today, we're just going to progress in our reading, writing, grammar, spelling, and vocabulary subjects. Let's just jump straight into the week. Okay, we've got Monday through Saturday, or Monday through Friday plus Sunday or whatever. We've got our second reader. So this one's longer than the primer and the first reader. There are, let me see how many lessons, 71. I'm sure you can do the math. Even if you did 1 lesson a week, there's only 52 weeks in a year. So you might be doing more than 1 lesson a week and might be doing a lesson a week. Part of what I liked about designing my own program is that I could let these, subtopics, sub-subjects go at their own pace. Instead of, that's why I don't like the kind of like the all-in-one curriculums that you get. Like I bought like the 3rd grade or 3rd level like master books, language arts, a few months back because I thought I just wanted to like look at it, but it had the same problem with it that like all language arts like pre-bound, like this is what they're doing. It's all predetermined and it doesn't allow for you to stop and slow down, like maybe in writing or spelling or reading, right? While other things your kids are progressing a little bit faster through. That's why there's not like hard and fast rules with this program of when exactly you're going to study this, this, and this. Do you know what I mean? Because I just let them practice whatever it is as long as they need to master it. So yeah, I have more of a mastery versus, I guess, a spiral approach. So what's nice about the primer and the first reader is that they have little built-in review lessons. Once we get to the second reader, like nothing's labeled review anymore, but you do still see, it's not like you lose anything. You know what I mean? I think it's just to pick up speed. But I kind of feel like I don't need so much a designated review section, because if they're having trouble with something, we just stay there until it's smoothed out. These were used in schools originally, so the teachers didn't have like I have the whole year to play with my kids. That's why we stick to the RC recommendation of year-round homeschooling. We have so much more time so it just really takes like the stress off of me. Like, oh, I have to cover. Like we don't have any, standards that we have to cover in a year. Do you know what I mean? Like we just let them master their skills at their own pace. Okay, I am still at this point reading with them. I actually love this time together, right? And these still have like preview words, but you'll notice they don't have like graphemes or phonograms pulled out anymore. It's just the words. Yeah, I think I still said words and letters, but they should have pretty well, by the time they get to the second reader, gone through all of their phonics flashcards. And this isn't on there, but I also do I do spelling boot camp once a year with my kids. I just pause our regular spelling and we do spelling boot camp. And so every year my kids get a really thorough review of all the phonemes and all the corresponding, graphemes. So I will link my video on my spelling boot camp for you in the description box, just in case that's something that's interesting to you. You may also, like, if you just know that there's something, like, especially if you've done the spelling boot camp and you kind of know what phonograms that they are weak in, so I was just noticing that we were reading this one lately, Alice's Supper, and the word a-kneading, the K-N, that just sounds like an N, is in there, and he keeps like saying it, ka-kneading. So that'd be one that like maybe I should pull out that KN flashcard and have it in a review pile. So just you can use your, it's not going to tell you which ones to pull anymore, but just as you're going along and you're like, yeah, he's missing that one, just start making your own, you know, phonics review pile as needed. So student reads the passage. Okay, we do the preview, pull out any needed phonogram flashcards, make a review pile. Student reads the passage, teacher reads, and student reads again smoother. I still think that's helpful at this point. On Monday, have the students summarize the passage to the teacher. So ask them for a summary. This is just oral, right? And then finish with the picture study. So this one was actually a poem. It's been really fun to read, but it takes them through this particular lesson, through the sequence of events of growing wheat, and then milling it, and then making the bread, and then the mom is serving it to little Alice, right? And then serving it. So it's like farm to table, right? That's a newer term. But it takes them through that so they could, this one was a really easy one to give a summary of and in order of events because it's just the way it's laid out. But that's something good to talk about. I love that the McGuffey readers give things in different forms, right? They have narrations, but they also have poems, and it's just so helpful for teaching them different ways of different things that are texts they're going to read, different text structures, but also teaching them different ways that they can write, right? So this is modeling for them. Okay, and then lesson 1, copywork. So do the picture study, right? Let them look with their magnifying glass paperweight at the pictures. And then lesson copywork 1 page. So this time I jump up to 1 page. Let me show you. Okay, so I just grabbed my KN flashcard. Right, so we read that. I'm like, okay, he needs help on that. And I may put that down here in my notes. KN sounds like, he needs to practice that, right? So I'll be having that in my review pile. And then copywork. So this is the Etsy version of this. You can also order it on Amazon. So I will say the one on Amazon, just as a side point for this product, it's the same passages and everything. I kept, of course, the script passages in there so they could practice their cursive. But this one doesn't have any more drawing space once you get to the second reader. Of course, anyone can draw anytime they want. Just give them a piece of paper. They can have their own sketchbook if they want. But I did put in the back of this one, for the Amazon version, the introduction to sentences. This is part of my little grammar complement, copywork complement. Punctuation, sentence type, parts of speech. So you could make copies from this. Comprehension questions to ask, grammar exercises. So it wasn't the whole entire thing, but it was what I thought matched up. It's the level 1 basically practice. I wish that Amazon, I wish I could get it to get spiral, but they don't offer spiral binding when you print through KDP. They just have to be in the habit of holding their paper down flat. Oh, and for this copywork also, the one they did at the cursive, this one, what's different about it is, so it's all in cursive obviously, but I went through and added so many like little comprehension questions, like reading comprehension questions. Does this passage remind you of anything in your own life or other things you've heard or read? So I wanted this one, I really wanted it to be more open and go. This one did have a, what type of text is this? Draw an illustration. So the cursive ones are always the last ones that I do, so I usually have added the most into them or changed the most stuff. What did you learn about the main character, James White? Anyway, so this one has more little reading comprehension kind of things in it. Everyone has issues and flaws to overcome in life. What is Laura's? If you had a problem like Laura, what would you do? Who could you ask for help? This is the only one I did that to because it took so long. I was like, I'm not doing that for the third reader. But I'll show, it's okay because I did something else. I have more things to do with the third reader, but anyways, so I actually really like this one. It's only in the Amazon version that has all those little extra sections from me in it. Okay, so this is McGuffey's Copywork Second Reader Revised Edition, just printed out from Etsy. This is what I was using with William. As you can see, he's been doing his handwriting in here. So we would have him do 1 whole page. You can see for this one, I had him, he's both traced and freehand written. And then you can see he's been doing his grammar. We'll get to that in a second. Yeah, sometimes if I just felt like he'd been writing really sloppy lately, then I just have him go back to tracing it as a kind of a remedial exercise. Okay, so have him do one whole page. Then we check it for accuracy, handwriting, spelling, punctuation, and spacing using the 2-color method. We talked about that pretty extensively in level 1. Grammar. There's actually, I didn't put it on here, but that copywork complement that I showed you for level 1 for last time, actually start using level 1 and maybe even into level 2. So we might still be doing level 1, right, and some sentence writing. So this is finding the parts of speech, common nouns, proper nouns, pronouns, verbs, adjectives, and conjunctions. And then these are, you know, the definition of those, and they're light colored so that the kids can trace them. And they'd be doing that in their copywork as they go, and as they identify things, then they're like listing them in here, writing their best handwriting. Then when that's full, you know, they can try to pick certain ones out, and there's lines for trying to write their own sentence and using the sentence editing checklist. Is from my bookmark. And at this point, they're probably only down to probably about, you know, item 6 for their simple sentences. But you make it into level 2. So level 2 we're still going over parts of speech, goes over complete sentences, sentence fragments, subject, predicate, clause, and phrase. So these are the definitions. Again, these are for them to, as you're talking about them, they trace it. And then it says find an example from your copywork, and then write the sentences in entirety and highlight or underline specific parts of speech. Let's say they found a sentence fragment from their writing, or in their copywork, they'd put it there, or they'd put a sentence here, and they would underline subject and predicate in different colors. They could put another sentence here they found and underline the different clauses. If they found a phrase, write it here. They could do the parts of speech like, you know, verb, noun. And then your favorite sentence, there's a favorite sentence from their writing, just have them write it here. And then identify like parts of speech, and they could just find the subject and predicate and tell you what those are too. So this will take them like all week. I would just do one of these each day. Do your copy work and then just do one row. And then for the level 2, they also have this, have someone dictate your favorite sentence. So whatever, once they've done this page, if this is all full, then have someone dictate your favorite sentence, so their favorite sentence from their copywork, from the parts of speech level 2 sheet. Write in your best handwriting and use all proper capitalization and punctuation. Check it against your sentence editing checklist, right, this again. And then have a parent or older sibling check it. Okay, so that's level 2. We'll talk about level 3 next time. So I just make little packets of this here, and you may even still be doing level 1 and 2 together. So this is gonna make a nice packet. Start by just going through the parts of speech, common noun, proper noun, pronoun, verb, adjective, and conjunction, right? And then have them do the sentence writing that goes with that here, and then have them go on to level 2. So you could just make a whole little packet, and I just would staple them together, and I would do like 5 or 6 at a time, and then actually just clipped them into the back of his little workbook, his little copybook, like that. So then once one was full, these are ones we ended up not using. So parts of speech level 1, so we could be filling that out. Sometimes I still use this page, the punctuation sentence type, just to review the types of sentences and keep that fresh in their mind, write their own sentence. Oh, these were those fill-in stories that I shared in the last video where you could find them. These were free, so I just printed them out. So yeah, I would just have these little pre-made packets using those exercises. And what we would usually do is like this, is use them as the bookmarks, right? And they had their sentence editing thing in there too. Great. So then every day, they would do a page of copy work. I would correct it to give them their feedback. And then they would do an item from their little grammar packets that they had made. And it's just simple, it's repetitive, but they know what to do. And it's different every time though, because they're dealing with different copy work. And so they come up with different sentences and they run into different forms of text to kind of decipher, and it just worked really well. It was good for retention, and they're always getting a lot of review through that because I'm trying to get them to master it. So let's say they did their page of copywork and their their copywork complement that can go with that. Also under grammar, so is sentence scaffolds. So I'm going to show you these. So I didn't do both the copywork complement and the sentence scaffolds at the same time. So I would start with the copywork complement level 1 for sure first. And then before you do the sentence scaffolds, let me show them to you. So we're using these right now. That's why they're in this little thing. So the point of this, I think I've talked about this in a previous video, is to practice grammar through authentic writing. And there are, beginning, a word bank at the back, 50 lessons. So I just do one a day to get through the sentence scaffolds. And I just found that programs that just all of a sudden were like, we tried to start out with gentle grammar, but it just immediately started telling them to write a statement or write sentences, but they didn't know what that was, you know? It didn't really it was the exercises, but it wasn't the teaching. Do you know what I mean? So this is more of a teaching resource. So possessive nouns, we're currently on lesson 36 of this. To show something belongs to someone or something, we use apostrophe S. Let's practice with names. Trace the first model sentence on line 1. I was given a model. Fill in the blanks in lines 2 and 3 with your own words following the pattern, and then write your own sentence following the model on line 4, and then check your sentence against the editing checklist. So I actually gave the little editing checklist right here. And then highlight the subject and predicate in 2 colors. This is one of those things I'm always referring back to the grammar complement, because it had that page that explained what subject and predicate were. But if you didn't have that, but you wanted to do the sentence scaffolds, let me show you what we do. So when we started out, I just would designate for William, I'd be like, okay, you're going to do the subject in green. That's the who or what of this that's doing the action. And then I would tell him to underline the predicate in another color. Okay, the predicate is the action part of the sentence, and it has the verb in it. The verb will be in it. The subject, it will be some kind of noun, so I may put in. So the first model sentence is, there is Tom's house. And then this particular lesson wants them to take note of the possessive S. It's Tom's. It's pronounced like a Z, like a Z, when we do the apostrophe S. We go over that as the example. It doesn't take very long. There is, and then they're gonna work on this. There is Susan's, and then they get to fill in, you know, Susan's, I don't know, dog. There is Will's coat. And now they're gonna put in the punctuation. Then they get to follow that model and make up their own. There is Mom's purse, period. Okay, then they're gonna use their sentence editing checklist down here. Okay, did you capitalize the first word and any names? Yes, check. Did you space your words apart evenly and write on the line? Yes. Did you spell words correctly and use punctuation at the end? Well, use punctuation. I think, so they may hit, like, I think it's spelled right. What if they didn't know how to spell purse? Then this is another reason why I like using these, because they may ask me if they spelled it right, and say they spelled it P-E-R-S or something, just sounding it out. I'm like, yeah, that is how it does look like it's spelled that way. The sound, remember, is U-R, and this is a U-R word, purse, and they have an E on the end of this one. It's a silent E. Why is it there? We don't know. This is just one of those, you just have to be familiar with it. It's not really doing anything, it's just sitting there. But, okay, did you spell words correctly and put punctuation? Okay, so now they've corrected their spelling and they put the punctuation. Okay, are your subject and verb in agreement? So what's the subject? It's actually, this one is Mom's purse and is. So that was, we actually just went over subject verb agreement in our last lesson. They probably do this without even knowing it. Subject verb agreement sounds like it's hard, but they're probably already naturally doing it, because you'd say, if they said there are Mom's purse, see how it like sounds wrong? There is Mom's purse. They are in agreement. Mom's purse and is, subject and verb are in agreement. Okay, read your sentence aloud. Doesn't make sense. There is Mom's purse. Yes, it does make sense. They catch a lot just by reading it out loud. Once they've checked it, now I've been like doing other stuff. Like, well, once I introduced the concept and we did our little model sentence, kind of, you know, pointed things out, and he does this stuff and checks it himself. I've been drinking coffee or whatever, checking Facebook, and then I come back and check it. And then that's it. I mean, it's super fast. And this is just what so they did their page of copywork, and then we did this. And then I would just flip it around or switch it, you know, so it's ready for the next day. So sentence scaffolds, teacher checks. Okay, and then spelling workbook, day 1 activities, you know, or whatever day you're on. So when we got into the second level, the McGuffey's second level, this is the printed out version, the Etsy version. You can buy these pre-printed, but the Etsy version kind of comes with more stuff. It comes with the flashcards for this one that are pre-printed. I always like just tape, you know, something in like an envelope so that I can just stick them in. Yeah, there's 2 of each, so we can play memory with our spelling words. We love it. And just a little tip for this game, as you're playing it, so even if we get, say we flip it over, hamper and planet, no match, right? Say hamper and hamper. We will talk about what spelling patterns we see, or suffixes, prefixes if they have any, what kind of vowel is it, how many syllables is it. I'll just ask those questions like while we're working. And if you feel like I can't do this program because I don't know that stuff off the top of my head, you'll learn it doing this with them. So it's just like everything else with homeschool, like you just learn aside your kids. So I mean, this program covers that stuff, so you'll pick it up too. Plus, a lot of that information is already in the book, the spelling book, which I pull all my words for, make my words list from. So I print out my own copy of the spelling word list, and like whenever we introduce a new spelling word list, I just make my notes on there, like what I'm going to point out to him. And we do this on the very first day, on the very first activity. And I do the stuff up on the board. We just do it together. I'll just show you the first day's activity. Oh, and I stick my vocab, I make a little tab. I stick my vocabulary pages and my rules and my pages on syllable types and syllable division in the back there, so they can refer to them whenever they need them. But like this is one we were just doing. Okay, so day 1 is like analyzing words. Okay, so like this is the list we were just going over on day 1. So I found when I got to this level, the words are harder. Instead of doing like all the color, I mean, if your kid's a little bit more advanced and better at spelling, you could just do all the pink days at once. So that's one day. The yellows are another day. 1 day for blue, 1 day for green. I just found I slowed down a little bit and just did 1 activity a day. So I just did just this one day. And then the next day, just this one, because he just needed more exposure to the words. So you can slow down. You don't have to do a spelling test every week. You can do a spelling test every, I don't know, 8 days or 9 days, or, you know, whatever it turns out to be. So the analyze words, so count sounds and write word blanks. So I do this, you can do this on a piece of paper of your own or on a chalkboard or whiteboard or whatever you have. So I would have this, and I would say, like he can't see the words, he just has a square. I'd say our first word was tamper. 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 Okay, I'd say you say it, and he'd say tamper, right? And we can deal with, if you have any speech issues, this will really help during this time to work on those. William has a history of being in speech. He had speech for a year. I think when he was like 4. It was super helpful, like just honest to God, life-changing. We could not talk to William. We didn't know what he was saying until he was, 4. I guess maybe he started going when he was 3. He went from like ages 3 to 4. I still have a lot of those kind of practices back from speech days, because our speech therapist was just wonderful. And I would ask like, well, what can I do at home? So sometimes she'd send me home with a little word list, and she would kind of coach me on what to do with him at home. So I still kind of do that now. And most of it just comes down to slowing down and making them like over enunciate sounds, it seems like. So I do that still with our spelling, and I think it helps our spelling too, So harvest, I'd be like, harvest. I gotta break it down syllable by syllable, like slowly at the beginning. Okay, so I'd give him the word harvest. We'd work on any speech issues. I'd say it full harvest, break it down by syllable. Harvest, harvest. Make sure he can say it correctly and hear it correctly. And then I ask him to count out the sounds that he hears. R, V, E, S, T. Right? 6. As long as he gets it right. Sometimes, I mean, he doesn't get it right because he'll say like R, V, E, st. As he'll say like the ST like it's one sound. St. And I'm like, no, it's st. Right? So we work on teasing out those individual sounds. And then once he has the correct amount, I have him write, 6 blanks. And then I have him again, and then I do on my board or my paper, whatever. So I'd be going like this. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. Then we'd say, okay, sound it out for me. So he'd say, ha, and I'd write H. And then he'd write H. R. That's an AR. And I put that on one line, right? Because that's like an R controlled vowel. That's something that we see as a unit of speech. R, V, E, S, T. Good. Harvest. And then we'd say, okay, how many syllables are in this word? Right, you might clap it. Harvest. There's 2. But is it harvest or is it harvest? And if you're not sure at this stage, don't worry about doing the syllable division rules because we'll do those later. I would just look in the book. So look up. You'll have to find, so these lessons, this is like lesson 30 something, but it's in lesson 12 in the Eclectic reader or the Eclectic spelling book. And I just look at the word in here, harvest right there, harvest. And you see, oh, see the little, it looks like a little accent. They're putting the accent on the syllable. There's a space between the syllables. It's harvest, and har is actually the accented syllable. So it's har, have him divide it, vest, right? Then I have him, we just say, remember, all syllables have both a vowel sound and a written vowel, right? Har, so the vowel here is the R-controlled vowel here is ah, and they showed you the umlaut over the A to show it's kind of a broad A, an ah sound. But it's being kind of like bent towards the R. I don't know how else to, it's being affected by the R. Harvest. And then, of course, the other vowel is the E, and it's a short E. And I like to have him put those on there. Sometimes there's ones that are like tar, D. I don't know why. So tar, D. You should have done that. Right there's a vowel. There's another vowel, E. So Y has 4 sounds like yeah, it, I, E. I don't really know what the symbol is for that, so I just do sounds like, and if it sounds like the long E, I make an uppercase E. Sounds like E, right, over it. And so that's the symbol that we use. It sounds like, whenever if you see anything in the slashes, it means sounds like whatever's inside of it. So that's just what we do. This is probably like the longest day of the spelling activities, just because you're talking and discussing things and you're doing all those little steps. So I would say this takes 10 or 15 minutes to do this day. I never like really time it. And then I just make the notes that we saw in my little list that I keep in the book, because we can refer to this later in the week as we do different spelling activities. And then the next day is a lot easier, and he just writes the word 3 times each, and I just have some fun, write it normal, write it with your opposite hand, write it with your eyes closed, so they need to like look at it, try to see it in their mind, close their eyes, picture it in their mind, and then try to write it with their eyes closed, which is kind of fun. Let's see, day 3, so levels 1 and 2, I did pre-made or pre-fill-in sentences to go with the words. And this is also good. It goes to, they say kids, remember words better if they know the meaning of them. Yeah, it doesn't make, are you really going to remember the word tamper if you don't know what it means, if you don't have like a mental image to go with it? So we're trying to get at vocabulary, more like comprehension here with the words, so they can just fill them in. It says look up spelling word definitions and dictionary if needed. So if they're like, I was told not to something with my brother's model airplane, the word is going to be tamper. And if And I just to make things easy, just for days that you just do not have the energy to have them get the dictionary out or whatever, these are actually in order. I wouldn't necessarily tell them that they're in order, but they actually are in the order that I have the sentences, just so if they need to, they can just fill them in and then just try to figure out what they mean from the sentence. They can just do that day. That's usually, you know, if they're looking up stuff in the dictionary, it can kind of take longer. And so I wouldn't try to make them necessarily do both of these in one day if it takes a long time. But then they can draw word sentences. So pick words you didn't know the meaning of and draw their sentences as pictures. So I was told not, so they didn't know what tamper meant. So I was told not to tamper with my brother's model airplane. This is another day. Sometimes this is the day that we look up the words and the definition. If there were ones over here that they didn't know what they meant, then I'd be like, okay, I might go back and circle those ones. Okay, you didn't know like 5 of them that they didn't know what they meant, and then have them write them in here and look them up in the dictionary, read the definition, write the part of speech, and then think about how the definition, because you know there's a lot of times there's multiple definitions. Which definition of the word were we using in the sentence? And then try to draw out the sentence. They can either draw the sentence of like tampering, you know, with the airplane and like maybe a parent shake, no, because you don't, tampering is usually not a good thing, right? Or they can make up their own, if they want to, their own picture that shows the meaning of the word to them. Either one is fine. Okay, pattern sort. This day, sort words into their patterns. Some will fall into more than one. And they can do this lots of different ways. Let's see. Lately, William's been like, okay, oh, here's some of his pictures he was drawing. Sometimes he just writes out the definition. Lately, he's just been liking to use, he likes to use the ruler. So he's just been, you know, making columns and labeling them with whatever pattern we had talked about, usually on day 1, you know, that I had made notes on. And so then I can give him my notes with about what patterns we saw. So like on this day, this was lesson 21, I'd written down that there was open syllables with long A's. All the words were 2 syllables. There was ER and ORs, and they all sounded like ER, but there was also closed syllables with short A's. We saw those patterns like over and over. So that's what he named them, and he put them in there. There's been other times where, you know, you could do it in circles. They can make columns of words in different color. They could use different colored pens, or like they could write out all of the words and then color code them. Like they could take their highlighters and make it. We've made keys before, like, you know, open syllable with long A, and we would highlight that in pink. And then any word that had that, we would put a little pink square next to it. And then because some of the words are going to have more than one pattern in them that we've identified. And then syllable division on this day. So write the words, mark the vowel sounds with diacritics. They wrote the words, they marked the vowel sound diacritics, right? It's the long A's. You can see they did the Macron over them, and the short A's, they did the breve. And then there's not really I don't think, a sign for the ER that sounds like They could just do the sounds like with an R. kind of. But the vowel sound there is kind of like an but it's so short. You know, that's the vowel sound. It comes from the E. Divide the syllables with vertical lines, right? So they could copy that straight out of their book if they wanted to, because the books gave the spacing from the McGuffey book. But I also give the rules for syllable division here. Syllable division steps. So you can practice those with them so they learn how to divide by syllables. It's kind of fun. And it also just gets them to work with the word longer, you know, and they start seeing patterns in the words through the syllable division. And then, yeah, they highlighted the different syllables in different colors, right? This is manger. Then word pyramids. See, look, I see mistakes. I can tell I didn't check it. Oh, and those were words he missed on his test too. Well, that's what happens when I don't check his work. And then spelling test. And so on this one, he missed a bunch, right? And it mostly came down to, well, this one, he used an S instead of a soft C. This one, he forgot the N in manger. But there was a lot of them that he just used ER for everything. And he forgot that there was OR words that sounded like ER. This was kind of a tricky lesson. The truth is, a lot of things are just savor. That is, I mean, that's a word, but it's ER more like when it's used as a suffix. Like save plus ER is savor. Like you're a good saver of money, right? But savor, like savor the flavor, that's like its own word. And it's spelled with an OR. I just saw something today because I'm always looking up spelling stuff. Do you know how you know if you use if you hear us at the end of the word, like in circus or curious? How you know if it's US or OUS? This blew my mind. You guys might know this. Circus, just a total side note. Circus, you hear the US, is a noun. Curious is spelled OUS, right? Is an adjective. So nouns with us at the end are spelled US. Adjectives are spelled OUS. And I was like, I need to add that to my spelling rules. I just saw that today. So if you ever come across stuff like that, don't be afraid to flip to your spelling rules section and just add yourself on a spelling rule. Like I should write that down. Rule 32, US or OUS. So US is for nouns, such as circus. OUS is for adjectives, such as curious. All right, you're welcome. Anyways, when he misses stuff, then we do the explore and correct. Identify why you missed the word, write it correctly 3 to 5 times, and then we covered it and we retest it. What I actually did is I just gave him an oral test after this. I'm not too worried that he missed this many because it's just one of those rules that like you just have to be familiar kind of with them, like the more you see them. Anyway, so just do some exploring, talk about it, and sometimes find a YouTube video on spelling, sometimes like look up ER and OR words or something and see if you find like a video, because sometimes just changing up the media, just a little change kind of sticks in their minds. Do you know what I mean? It's novelty. Novelty always seems to like stand out. But that's why I don't want to watch videos every single day, because then they all blur together. But if they are just once in a while for a targeted thing, then they tend to stand out. I still am using this, First Illustrated Grammar and Punctuation. This is still something that, like when you're doing your sentence scaffolds and it's talking about subject-verb agreement, you can look in here and see subject-verb agreement or conjunctions or whatever. Okay, oh my gosh, so I'm only on day 1. Okay, review phonics cards, ask student a bookmark question. You're still reading every day, right? And then a bookmark question. So at this point, I'm getting more into the comprehension check-in questions, and this will help you just know what to ask. Just start asking these questions. So you guys read the passage, and then look at these and say which one of these would be a good question to ask for that passage. And this is from my language arts bookmarks, but I just took the grammar check-in and the comprehension check-in, and I printed them out on cardstock and I glued them together. So I had a 2-sided, pretty durable little bookmark. And then you can also be asking, if you want to, you can look at the grammar check-in too and ask them just to find you a piece of grammar. Find a pronoun, find an adjective, find a verb, find a helping state of being verb, find an adverb. Where indents, quotations, apostrophes, colons, semicolons, or commas used. Why? Find a or an in a sentence. How are they used? Why? So it'll help you if you just want something really low key and you just want to read and just ask a grammar check-in question, a comprehension check-in question. You can also just call, you can call that good and have them do the copy work and call that good too. We all have days where we're like, oh my gosh, I can't do anything extra. Point out a piece of grammar for focus. Yeah, that's what your grammar flashcard or your grammar bookmark comes in. Do a page of copy work, check it. Do a sentence scaffold, check it. Do the next day of spelling. So Wednesday, what's different? Okay, you're reading. Bookmark comprehension question. Teacher points out previously shown grammar item and asks students to identify. So you're always reviewing stuff. What's different about Thursday? You're doing the same thing on Thursday, except now you're going to ask the student to identify the grammar item in the passage without it being pointed out. So now you're going to say, find me a period. Find me a apostrophe or something, right? Why is it being used? Friday, everything is still the same. Fill in your phonics chart with the flashcard. So if you're if you don't have that phonics chart filled out, finish it. The last day is when we do I call it like the student teacher day, where the student asks the teacher a comprehension question after the reading, and the student points out a piece of grammar and like teaches what its purpose or why it's used. Right, and then that's the day I would do dictation or copywork, either one, but you can do dictation to get your feedback to see how is their independent, like how is it coming, like without them being prompted to use punctuation and grammar, you know, see how it's coming, right? Make sure you're taking down any notes to help yourself that week to adjust for like the next week. So when you sit down with your planner, be like, okay, make a note to yourself that you want to do extra practice on the KN, right? Maybe you want to point out, pull aside pull up a word list of KN words just to have a practice. You could even do that, you know, you could take a pause on the McGuffey spelling list and you could do all the same activities that are in there, but just do your own word list based on something that you see that they're like having trouble in their reading, because we know that practicing spelling and studying spelling really greatly improves kids' reading. I don't know that reading helps their spelling as much, but spelling really helps their reading. So use that to your advantage, that knowledge. That was level 3. There was one quick thing I thought I would show you because I should have showed you before, but I forgot. And that's if you want to see how I record. So this is, you know, to help me plan and stuff, but how do I actually, like, do I print this out for every week? No, I don't. I just have one copy of it that I keep in my binder. Planner, but I'll show you how I record what we do using this. Okay, so I have it there to refer to, right? This is what my planner basically looks like. I just pulled out some blank sheets for you. Okay, so I just write, you know, week of whatever. So I have a two-page spread, but I won't need it for everything. So for my subjects, let's say I was just gonna fill out had a column for reading and writing. That's basically what I put these 4 things under. So for reading, I would just write McG, right, whatever book we're in, and I'd write lesson L for lesson, and I just put a line to leave blank. I don't know what day they're gonna master that lesson on and move on to the next. So I just write McG lesson, because that's what we do. We start with our lesson. We're just gonna go through that together. And then for writing, pretty much everything else falls under writing. Copywork, you can write 1 page, maybe on the top line, but you don't have to do it for all of them. So you're gonna do their copywork. CW for copywork. If they were doing the grammar complement, I would write G for like grammar. If they're doing the sentence scaffold, sentence, grammar. So you can pick whichever one. And then I also consider spelling to be writing. So then I just write spelling, might write grammar, maybe for the first day. I'm always thinking about like, if I ever for some reason had to show this to the state, I want at least the top line to have everything spelled out so they're not like, what is CW, what is G? And then like SP for the rest of them. Let's say they ended up taking a spelling test, it would be SP test, and then whatever lesson, say they were on lesson 21, and then I just write myself a circle and I just write, you know, 10 out of 10. I just record the grade right in here personally for my records. And then I just go back with whatever highlighter I want to use. And I just give myself a checkbox on here. As stuff gets done during the week, say Monday, we did that reading lesson. Let's say it was lesson 21, check it off. And if I felt like they still needed to do more, like they needed to read that one again, it wasn't as smooth, they were still getting tripped up on something, then I would just continue. I mean, I would just continue on. But whenever I don't know when they're gonna master it, you know what I mean? So I just wait and fill it in as it goes. So let's say it took us 4 times reading that before it was really mastered. And then we went on to lesson 22, and that took us a couple days, right? And this does not take very long. I mean, this takes 10 minutes maybe, right, to do this lesson. It takes longer for me to explain it than it takes to do it. And then the writing, that's independent, so that's you're doing something else with another kid or doing your own thing, and that takes a good, I don't know, depends on if they stop and space off. You just tell them, you're like, hello, do your writing. Then they go back with their grammar, so they're doing like highlighting, right, or whatever they're doing in there. It doesn't take very long. You're checking it, and then their spelling. And you just check it off as you go. Anyway, so you might be referring to this at first, but then you basically get your routine down the way, so I have them, so I've made this plan. My kids, I've talked about our Monday morning meeting before, they put it in there. This is all part of their planner. So you can see for Friday, today he's got McG, copywork, G for grammar, and SP for spelling. And he just checks it off on his own. I know it sounds like a lot when you're explaining it. I'm giving all my little like teaching tips and stuff, but it just is actually really simple and fast. And then before you know it, the week is done. You have a record to keep for your state if they require that. And you've also just made sure that you've stayed on track. You can see what you've missed. And I just keep this, in the front of his section in my binder. I hope that was helpful talking about level 3. And I'll be back for level 4 very soon. Okay, bye.